For 3 decades, a storage unit sat untouched in a Burbank warehouse. The name on the rental agreement was fake. The payments came in cash every month until 1990, when they suddenly stopped. When investigators finally broke the lock and stepped inside, what they found would expose secrets that Hollywood's biggest stars had buried for generations. Inside were documents about Sammy Davis Jr.'s real mother's identity, recordings of conversations that could destroy careers, and evidence of what really happened during his forbidden romance with Kim Novak in 1958. The man they called Mr. Entertainment had documented everything, and after 30 years of silence, the truth was finally crawling out of the shadows. Most people know Sammy Davis Jr. as the ultimate showman, the guy who could sing, dance, act, and charm his way into America's heart. But there was always something he kept hidden, something that started the day he was born. December 8, 1925, in Harlem, New York. His father was Sammy Davis Sr., a vaudeville performer. His mother was Elvira Sanchez, and here's where the first secret begins. Elvira wasn't just another dancer, she was Cuban. In 1920s America, revealing Cuban heritage could end careers before they started. Anti-Cuban sentiment ran deep, and the family made a calculated decision. They buried that part of Sammy's identity so far down that even decades later, most people had no idea about his Latin roots. From the moment he took his first breath, Sammy Davis Jr. was living a lie, hiding pieces of himself to survive in a country that wasn't ready to accept who he really was. By age 2, little Sammy was already performing with the Wilmaston Trio, dancing and singing while other kids played with toys. But the real education came from traveling across a segregated America. He saw the whites-only signs, felt the sting of being turned away from restaurants, and learned that talent meant nothing if your skin was the wrong color. This wasn't just about entertainment, it was survival training. When his parents split and his father took custody, the lessons got harder. Wilmaston became like a godfather, but even he couldn't shield Sammy from what was coming. The road was preparing him for battles that would make or break him, and the first real test would come in a place designed to break men completely. In 1943, 18-year-old Sammy Davis Jr. was drafted into the U.S. Army. At 5 feet 6 inches and 120 pounds, he walked into what became his personal nightmare. The military promised integration, but delivered pure hatred. The first soldier he met called him a racial slur to his face. What followed was 2 years of systematic torture that would have destroyed most people. White soldiers kidnapped him and painted him white from head to toe, mocking everything about his identity. They tricked him into drinking beer mixed with urine. Some nights, they urinated on him while he slept. His nose was broken 3 times. But the worst was yet to come. One freezing night, soldiers tied him to a tree and left him there, helpless and alone. It was a message that cut deeper than any physical wound. No matter how talented you are, remember your place. The beating that followed put him in the hospital for 3 days. Nobody was punished. Nobody cared. Lying in that hospital bed, Sammy thought about ending it all. The weight of endless hatred had pushed him to the brink. But then something clicked. When he joined the Army's entertainment unit, he found his weapon. Even the men who hated him couldn't deny his talent when he was on stage. Their applause became his power, and he realized that his gift wasn't just entertainment, it was survival. By 1951, Sammy had transformed that pain into pure magnetism. At Ciro's nightclub on Sunset Boulevard, he delivered a performance that changed everything. After the Academy Awards that year, the room filled with Hollywood royalty, Humphrey Bogart, Marilyn Monroe, Judy Garland, and they watched in stunned silence as this small man commanded the stage like a king. Overnight, he became the hottest act in show business. But success brought new dangers, especially when it came to matters of the heart. In 1957, Sammy fell hard for Kim Novak, one of Hollywood's biggest white stars. They met on The Steve Allen Show, and the chemistry was instant and dangerous. In 1950s America, only 4% of people approved of interracial relationships. The memory of Emmett Till's lynching was still fresh. Sammy and Kim tried to keep things secret, meeting at a Malibu beach house, with Sammy hiding under blankets in cars. But in January 1958, a gossip columnist falsely reported they were engaged. The news hit like a bomb. Studio executives panicked. The mob got involved. Sammy was kidnapped by mobsters tied to Columbia Pictures and given an ultimatum that chilled him to the bone: end things with Kim or lose his remaining eye. Even mob boss Sam Giancana, who usually protected entertainers, said he couldn't help Sammy in Hollywood. Terrified and trapped, Sammy made the hardest decision of his life. On January 7, 1958, he broke up with the woman he loved. 3 days later, he married Lorraine White, a black singer, in what was nothing more than a sham to appease the mob and the media. He paid her up to $25,000 for the performance. That wedding night, overcome with rage and despair, Sammy almost strangled his fake bride. Later, his assistant found him alone with a gun, contemplating whether life was worth living anymore. Despite the personal cost, Sammy's career continued to soar. By the late 1950s, he was earning $25,000 a week in Las Vegas, but he still couldn't stay in the hotels where he performed. The city's segregation laws forced him to stay miles away on the west side of town. Sammy refused to accept it. He became the first black entertainer to demand and receive equal treatment at the Frontier Hotel. This wasn't just about accommodation, it was about dignity. With Frank Sinatra's support, he pressured casinos across the Strip. His success helped pave the way for the 1971 Nevada law that finally ended hotel discrimination. When Sammy died in 1990, Las Vegas dimmed its lights for a full minute. The city that once rejected him now honored him like a king. But even as he broke barriers in public, his private demons were growing stronger. Fame brought money, and money brought access to everything, including things that would eventually consume him. Here's where the story takes a darker turn that most people never knew about. In the late 1960s, Sammy developed a friendship with Anton LaVey, the founder and high priest of the Church of Satan. What started as curiosity about the occult became a 2-decade obsession that lasted until the final days of his life. His Beverly Hills mansion transformed into a playground for Hollywood's elite, where celebrities came to drink, use drugs, and explore the darker side of spirituality. Wild parties became legendary, with rumors of wife-swapping and occult rituals. This wasn't just experimentation, it was escapism. The deeper Sammy went into these pursuits, the harder it became to control his other addictions. Cocaine and alcohol became his daily companions. On stage, he still sparkled like a diamond, but off-stage, he was often drunk, high, and spiraling out of control. The gap between his public image and private reality was becoming impossible to bridge. Friends watched helplessly as the man, who could do everything, seemed determined to destroy himself with the very excess his success had made possible. The financial consequences of his lifestyle were catastrophic. Despite earning around $50 million during his career, Sammy's gambling addiction consumed everything. He could lose $40,000 in a single night at the tables, and unlike Frank Sinatra, whose debts were often forgiven by casino owners, Sammy always had to pay up. Bad business deals and questionable tax shelters added to his troubles. His generosity also played a part. He supported dozens of people and spent money like there was no tomorrow. By the time throat cancer began stealing his voice in 1989, the financial damage was irreversible. All those years of smoking 4 packs a day had finally caught up with him. He faced a choice: lose his voice box to surgery and live, or try radiation to keep singing. He chose his voice and lost the gamble. When Sammy died on May 16, 1990, the cruel irony was complete. Despite 6 decades of entertaining millions, he owed more than $7 million to the IRS. His estate was worth about $4 million, but every penny went to taxes and debt. His widow, Alto Weiss, was left to pick up the pieces of a shattered financial empire. The heartbreak deepened with the auction that followed his death. In September 1991, more than 1,800 people gathered to buy pieces of Sammy's life. His gold record for the Candy Man sold for $4,275. A pair of his tap shoes brought $11,000. People bought his jewelry, his walking sticks, even his personal scrapbooks. The auction raised $439,000, barely making a dent in that massive tax debt. Alto Weiss wept as she watched her husband's treasures disappear into strangers' hands. But some items had already vanished mysteriously. 185 pieces of jewelry, and even an Andy Warhol painting were missing. Then came the discovery that would crack the case wide open. In late 1991, a 28-year-old man named Matthias Horenik received a strange bill for $365. It was for a storage unit he'd never rented. His identity had been stolen. When the storage company investigated and called police to check the unit, they found Sammy Davis Jr.'s missing treasures: a trumpet, an antique record player, a jukebox, clothing, documents, and photographs. Someone had rented the unit just 2 weeks after the auction, using fake identification and paying cash. The plan was brilliant in its simplicity. If they kept paying the monthly fee, no one would ever know. But when the payments stopped, the secret was exposed. Police discovered that an employee of Altovice had helped stash the items, claiming he was trying to save what was left before the IRS could seize everything. They'd used stolen ID and paid cash for 3 decades, creating a time capsule of Sammy's hidden life. When the IRS finally got their hands on the storage unit contents, they hoped to recover more of the debt, but the bigger question remained unanswered. What else was Sammy hiding? The documents found in that storage unit revealed letters about his mother's true Cuban identity, the secret he'd carried his entire life. There were tapes of conversations with Hollywood power players, recordings that could have destroyed careers if they'd ever been made public. Most shocking of all was evidence about what really happened during his relationship with Kim Novak, proof that went beyond what the public ever knew about the mob's involvement in Hollywood's love affairs. The storage unit discovery revealed the final tragedy of Sammy Davis Jr.'s life. Here was a man who'd broken every barrier, who'd earned the respect of presidents and paupers alike, who'd fought racism with his talent and won. But in the end, he couldn't escape the secrets that had shaped him from birth. His Cuban heritage, his forbidden love affairs, his dabbling in the occult, his financial destruction, all of it was carefully documented and hidden away, waiting for someone to find it. 30 years after his death, we're still discovering who Sammy Davis Jr. really was beneath the spotlight. The storage unit wasn't just a hiding place for stolen goods. It was a museum of a complicated man who lived multiple lives simultaneously. Every document, every tape, every hidden photograph tells the story of someone who gave everything to entertainment, but kept the most important parts of himself locked away. Perhaps that's the most shocking truth of all, that even after decades of seemingly total openness, Sammy Davis Jr. still had secrets left to reveal.